Hello, I'm Caden McGregor from TIRIAS Research. I'm here with my employer, Jim McGregor, and you've
Employer, dad,
everything, all of the
colleague.
above.
Yeah.
You've actually been to Siggraph before, albeit not in quite some time. What do you think is different, better, worse, new about this one?
Well, you gotta remember, Siggraph has been around for a long time. It's matter of fact, I didn't realize, but they talked about it here that Siggraph's been around. This is the 51st event,
Yes.
Siggraph event. That means they were doing it since I was a little kid. Um, that freaked me out because I've known it for about 15 years, I guess. Siggraph is to understand Siggraph. Siggraph has always been a critical event for introducing, working on, and educating around new graphics technologies.
Mhm.
Let's face it. When we think of computing, it's all been about enhancing graphics, both on desktop computers, but also mobile solutions. So, that's always kind of been the key thing. Now with AI, big part of the industry is focused towards AI, but most people don't realize that graphics is still critical. And I think the most impactful thing I saw at this event, and it kind of builds on what we saw at CES too, was the fact that one of the biggest challenges we have is integrating the digital world and the real world and bringing those two together and really making them work. And a critical part of that is graphics. Whether you're trying to simulate a digital twin of a real world environment or you're trying to, create that link, for humans to see the digital realm or for the machines and stuff to see the physical realm and understand the two. So I think that's probably the most impactful thing is seeing how we're working on those technologies. That includes AI. That includes using critical new technologies like USD, Universal Scene Description, so that applications can work together. Having tools to be able to build these environments like Omniverse from Nvidia, and having the compute resources, having the sensor technology, having all these solutions that really bring the two worlds together.
That's a great response. And coming here for the first time, I sort of expected the conference to be centered around pushing the boundaries of graphics further.
Mhm.
However, I really haven't, over the past 3 days, seen much development in graphics cards or the algorithms that pushes them further. But I've seen the interaction and the use case of them more. I've seen them being used for AI and for
Mhm.
the digital humans, for motion capture. And I was asking, what do you think is the most impressive or how should I phrase this? The most cutting edge technology you've seen at this conference, and what do you think will be that going forward? And do you think any of these should come together over the next year?
I think critical. You mentioned motion capture. We've seen several companies here demonstrate motion capture solutions, and some of them are still based on sensors. Like if you want to do a person putting sensors all over their body, but more and more they're being focused on newer technologies, whether it's just image capture for 3D volumetric capturing, or we saw one by Bifrost that's using radar. And
Absolutely.
these technologies are not just good for humans, but they're good for, all kinds of environments, identifying objects in any type of environment and creating that true rendering for the digital environment. Because we have to remember that, we live in two worlds. One of the ways NVIDIA describes this is, moving atoms and moving electrons.
Hmm.
And everything we do in the physical world is about moving atoms. Even just talking right now, everything else is moving electrons, and there's significant value there. By using that digital environment, that electronic environment, to enhance the efficiency, productivity, and the safety of the physical world, and having that link between the two. So I think that motion capture is a critical technology I've seen here, but I also think all the tools that are enabling this. We're starting to see this USD, Universal Scene Description language, or Open USD as they're referring to it now. Allowing all these tools to work together and simultaneously. Matter of fact, you had an eye-opening moment. You want to talk about that?
I did. First day that we were here at this conference, we were able to see a amazing demonstration using the Apple Vision Pro, where we were shown using Nvidia Omniverse and OpenUSD, using a Nvidia desktop machine and a MacBook Pro. Two developers were able to edit scripts in Unreal Engine on the Nvidia PC and instantaneously see the results of that script running on the simulation through the MacBook into the Apple Vision Pro without even having to relaunch the application. I mean, that is incredible.
Well, what's that mean to you as a developer?
To me as a developer, well, I've had some experience working in VR, and I'm just a code monkey myself with the artists doing their own thing. And it's difficult. It's difficult to work on a large team, especially when everyone's doing their own role. And when I needed to update a script or change some functionality in the game, or someone needed to push a new asset, it was difficult because everyone needed to get that new information, set it up on their machine, relaunch their simulation, and then be able to monitor and test and see how those changes affected the environment. And we weren't able to do that all at the same time. But with this technology, an artist can push an asset, and the programmers or another artist could see that on their machine anywhere, not even in the same room, and understands if that helped or if that made an issue in the system. And programmers can add scripts and see if that changes anything positively or negatively in the game or simulation.
Well, and in code development, you can actually see if it crashes it immediately.
Absolutely.
So yeah, that's a big thing. Well, you also mentioned something about what, I know you mentioned you're referring to game development, but I think it's relative to all content development.
Oh, absolutely. I speak of game development because that's my experience with it. But this technology is far beyond that. It's going to go beyond game development. It's going to go into industry. It's going to go into all kinds of media. And, I personally just cannot even see the ends of where this will reach.
But you also mentioned what this changes in terms of who develops what.
It does, especially with the groundbreaking work we've seen from Nvidia working with Shutterstock and Getty Images, where you don't just have a programmer who's only able to write code or an artist who's only able to generate assets. You have AI assistants who are able to aid every person on your team with multiple roles. You could have a programmer who, when they need an asset, instead of having to reach out to the artistry team and describe what they want and go back and forth, you can pull up an AI assistant and generate that. Even with the Shutterstock that we've seen, you could provide reference images for what you wanted it to look like, and with the OpenAI and Nvidia that we've seen developing the ability to generate small, complex code from language models, you'll have artists being able to write their own simple scripts, which will severely save time.
Well, and it's interesting because, we saw Shutterstock that's creating kind of these digital-like assets, and we see Getty Images actually using real images and creating enhanced or new images from all that information they have. So, I mean, that's really phenomenal, giving you both kind of that digital-looking world and that real-looking world. But also, some of the technology we saw here was bringing that real-life value or real-life texture, images, everything else into the digital realm. HP is showing off their materials / I don't even know what you call this, but it's a scanner that you can actually use to actually scan the texture, the color, the everything, the shape of materials, and actually import all that material technology. And then Shutterstock, also working with HP, has a solution to actually take those generated images and 3D print them into physical solutions.
Oh, absolutely. I have been amazed by the work that HP has done here at this conference because, as you've said before, moving electrons and atoms, they are proving that we are able to bring real life objects not only into the digital world in a way that we haven't been able to before, but we're now able to make things digitally and bring them into the real world through this 3D printing technology, which is incredible. I mean, I'm not an artist myself, but the ability to go find a material that you like in the real world, or even something that's personal to you, and be able to scan that into a game, into a movie, into anything you want, that's impressive to me.
It really is. That digital divide or that digital boundary is breaking down, and it's really important to remember that the more we do that, the more we can create stuff in the digital realm, transfer it to the physical realm, and make it more efficient, more productive, even people, and safer. And have that constant link where everything works better. And obviously, a key part of this is AI. Using AI to generate images, to generate assets, to generate code, to simulate things. So AI is, I'm not going to say that AI isn't here. It's a graphics conference, but AI is kind of the underlying building block that goes across all this stuff.
Absolutely.
Well, there's one thing we have to talk about. One thing that was different, and I know you noticed this, even though it's your first one. Nvidia was everywhere.
Definitely.
and even going back to some of the keynotes, CEO Jensen Huang went and actually did his own keynote address, which was very entertaining. It was more of an interview until he took it over. And then he had Mark Zuckerberg on. So having two leaders in AI on the same stage and that work together,
yes.
I think Jensen noted that the Meta now has like 600,000 H100s in one of the largest installations. Yeah, I can see why they work together. But but no, they were very entertaining, and they were very visionary.
Oh yes.
Some of the topics they covered included, the importance of open standards, where things are going with AI, XR, VR, or AR, VR, XR. Any other topics I missed?
I think you've covered most of them, but I think the most impressive thing to me was not only how much they were able to discuss and the importance of that, but they were able to explain these complex things in a way anyone could understand.
Yeah.
And they were able to do it in such a personable fashion that it was not only informative to watch them, but it was entertaining. And I think that is a very impressive thing for two CEOs to come to a tech conference and do.
Yeah. And one other thing about this is Nvidia obviously was heavily invested here. They sponsored all kinds of tutorial sessions, hands-on learning sessions, presentations, generative AI, OpenUSD, on and on and on. They were the only really hardware or technology company that had that kind of presence here. Obviously, that was driven by Jensen.
Yes.
And Nvidia and their interest in doing that. So they almost kind of made this as a kind of another GTC where, it's another developer conference, especially for those people focused on graphics technologies and, like I said, breaking down that digital barrier. So it'll be interesting to see what becomes, or how this conference evolves with such a huge influence by Nvidia going forward.
Absolutely. Their presence was both noticed and appreciated by everyone here.
Yeah. So it was impressive. So any other comments about your first, this isn't just your first Siggraph, it's your first technology conference.
It is my first technology conference. It was an amazing technology conference to start with. Everyone was incredibly welcoming. The events were put together in a way that anyone could come in and experience the hands-on labs. It was incredible.
Yes, and the important thing about this one, very much like GTC, is it features a lot of participation by students and everything else. So they have the poster boards. Matter of fact, they have students volunteering, basically running the conference. But a lot of participation by some of the universities, some of the students, and everything else. So I was very happy to see it.
So was I.
And
yes.
I haven't been at one for about a decade, so. Well, thank you. And thank you for joining us.